Hello and welcome to the Crone Zone. I'm Lynn. So today we carry on looking at courtier cards with the matured energy of the queens. Having come through pages and knights, we're now in a place of greater maturation. Because we live in a patriarchy, it's tempting, or rather too easy, to think of kings as being the highest ranking of the cards and queens somehow as subordinate to that. But actually, that's not very helpful here. We need to think about this more flexibly. There are differences in the energies of kings and queens. And sometimes, whatever our gender, it's more appropriate to use one, maybe a king like energy, and in another, a queen like energy. So let's take a closer look at the queens then. The queens come under the archetype of the empress, and this gives us a real baseline indicator of how they work. They will be highly creative, facilitating fertile growth. And they will nurture this development, creating abundance and manifestation. Each queen will express these qualities according to her suit. We've come across the connection between the suits of the minor arcana and Jung's psychological types. Remember, swords relate to thinking, wands to intuition, cups to feeling, and pentacles to sensation. When we're thinking about Jung's psychological types, ideally we would like to be a balance of the four, But in truth, most of us are dominant in one type. And therefore, being dominant in one type, we often lack a little in its opposite type. So, a thinking type may be a little deficient in the feeling capacity. A fire intuitive type might be lacking in earthy qualities. And sometimes when the cards come up in a reading for us, as well as showing us people, possibly, they could be showing us modes that we need to develop and operate in. Maybe we need to grow into a way of being, a way of operating. Or there could be somebody who comes into our lives who embodies the very qualities we need to develop, and they're mirroring those to us. As a generic group, the queens come under the water element. The pages, we recall, were under earth, and the knights under fire. So, as such, coming under the wide umbrella of water, the queens generally have more developed emotional intelligence than the kings. There are exceptions here, however, so the King of Cups would have emotional intelligence, and the Queen of Swords perhaps a little less so. The queens are represented by the cardinal signs of the zodiac, which means that in the manner of their suits, they are dynamic initiators. The Queen of Swords. The swords are a masculine suit, and when women embody this energy to a degree, they can be thought of as cold and unfeeling. In truth, though, the energy is detached and rational. It's interesting that we only have a side view on this queen. She doesn't face us or look at us, and I think that's an important message, because her interaction is with the truth of her ideals rather than with us, and she will not be swayed away from what she knows is true by relationship with someone. She will, though, be scrupulously fair in all her dealings, and there will be great clarity and openness in her communications. You will know exactly where you are with this queen. She sits high up amongst the clouds, and we notice that clouds also decorate her cloak. The Queen of Swords is linked to the cardinal astrological sign of Libra, which also rules the Justice card in the major arcana, and there are distinct comparisons between the two cards. The Queen of Swords has mental clarity, signified by the single bird above her head. Interestingly, for the first time in the court cards of the swords, we see the entire sword, the sword of truth and justice, two principles she is impartially dedicated to. This queen will always act on her principles. Her judgments will be without bias, without fear or favour. So the Queen of Swords definitely relates to the thinking function. She's likely to be quite brilliant academically, maybe a professor of some sort. She also has a very developed social conscience. When you draw the Queen in a reading, you are really being advised to detach from emotion and to look at matters with as much clarity and objectivity as you possibly can, and above all, to be fair. These are important considerations with this queen. And certainly, excesses of emotion are to be avoided. The Queen of Wands is generally perceived as a mature figure, somewhat austere. Certainly, she has enormous self-sufficiency. She really is able to manage and handle all of her own affairs very effectively. She has become associated in the deck traditionally, perhaps because of her independence, with widowhood. In contrast to the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Wands sits facing us full body. Wands, like swords, are a masculine energy, and there is an element of masculinity to the posture of the Queen and also to her physique. She presents as strong, confident, and willful. She clutches the wand, and we have no doubt at all that she is going to wield it. This is a woman enthroned in her power. But women embodying such qualities can be thought of as over-assertive in our society. The Queen of Wands will not wait for equality to be given to her. She will take it as her given right. She's creative and dynamic, passionate and playful. She apologises for nothing. Energy is high here. She is driven forward on enthusiasm, though, and can miss detail. This queen has the most drive and ambition of any of the queens, but she can sometimes be a little insensitive and high-handed. And if you are employing this energy, then those are things to avoid. I have to make you aware of a personal foible of mine regarding the Queen of Wands. I've said that the queens relate to cardinal astrological energies, which means that the Queen of Wands should be aligned to the sign of Aries. However, I cannot help but think of her as a Leo, and I will give you some of the reasons why I think this. So it's looking at her throne. We see up here on the flag the emblem behind her, two red rampant lions. The lion is the sign of Leo. We also see, you see here that on her throne, on the arms of the throne, again, two lion heads. This is sort of echoed down in the little black witchy cat, still very much in this feline feel of things. But the clincher for me, and I'm noticing I've got sunflowers in the background here, the clincher for me is the sunflower on the card. This we see on the card, the sun, in the background around the child on the horse. All those beautiful sunflowers associated with the sun, and the sign of the zodiac associated with the sun is Leo. So I adhere to the idea of the cardinals, but in her case, I have to go with Leo. I will leave it with you to decide what you will do. The Queen of Cups is positioned at the zenith of the suit of cups. She is water, cups, amongst the water-ruled queens. But furthermore, since cups are female energy, and she is a queen, she holds the qualities of that element more powerfully than the King of Cups does. The Queen of Cups is associated with the sign of Cancer, which is cardinal water. The Queen sits in three-quarter view on the shoreline, occupying a liminal space between earth and water. Traditionally, when the Queen of Cups shows up in a reading, we are looking at deeply compassionate, nurturing, motherly energies. She could represent a healer or counsellor, certainly someone with developed emotional intelligence. She is intuitive, empathetic, and artistic. The Queen sits at the edge of the flowing ocean, and her gown seems to flow into it. Shells and watery merchildren decorate her throne. So the Queen of Cups is a subtle and complex energy, one of great emotional depth and understanding. But what the Queen knows is that, like the ocean tides, feelings come in and go out. They're not constant. So there can be a kind of moodiness to this energy as well. We can also see that the cup itself is sealed. All of the other cups in the suit are open, but this one is sealed. And the Queen gazes at it very intently. It's almost like it's a crystal ball she's looking into, trying to find the unknown there, to look deeply inwards. It is quite an inward, reflective energy rather than an extroverted one. We also notice that the angels at the side of the cup are black and they have very large wings. This is a queen who knows that not all emotions are pretty. Not all emotions are nice. We tend to think of love and joy and peace and gratitude and all those kinds of things. But there are darker emotions too. This queen is in touch with all of that and a mistress of all of that. She's also the psychic in the deck. Our final queen is the Queen of Pentacles. And she is aligned to the cardinal earth sign of Capricorn. Often thought of as a stern sign, yet her expression is the softest of any of the queens. Like the cups, pentacles are a feminine energy, and we see this in the posture of both the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Pentacles. Compared to the blue backgrounds of the other Queen cards, There is a real warmth here. A golden sky echoes the gold of the pentacle. The Queen sits in a beautiful, abundant landscape in what looks like a time of full harvest. The end of summer, the beginning of autumn, everything is burgeoning, everything is fruiting, everything is coming to fruition. She looks down at the pentacle in her lap, almost as though it was a child, something precious which she nurtures. Whatever activities she's been involved in, they have not been purely material. They have been more than that. There has been so much more integrity in her activities than that. This Queen is a strong, mature energy, someone at peace with themselves, and as we see, fully able to manifest in the world. This is a motherly energy, as are all of the queens. But in a reading, this is often the sign of being capable of combining career and home in a balanced and capable way which honours both. The Queen has her throne right upon the earth. She is grounded in nature and surrounded by abundance. This card is a good indicator of success in business and finances. In a reverse or adverse position, it can indicate insecurities with hearth and home, finances and health. So whether we are nurturing ourselves, families, communities, projects, creative works, the dynamic, initiating, fertile energy of the queens is going to be a wonderful resource to employ. But I want to go just a little further than that and say that in our society, one of the things we desperately lack is the contribution, the real contribution, and the real status of that queen energy. We've been operating far too long without that real feminine presence in all of our major institutions, our politics, our business, everything. We need that return of the feminine energy. So I can say with all sincerity, long live the queens. It just remains then for me to say cheerio. Thank you for being here with me, and I'll see you next time for the Kings.